When it comes to lights, a heat lamp can be very, very dangerous. So here are some tips. First of all, make sure you have an actual heat lamp. When you go to a farm store, if the employee doesn't know the difference between a heat lamp and a painter's lamp, you could be sold a dangerous product. For instance, this was sold to a Mother's News staffer as a heat lamp, and unfortunately, this is a painter's lamp. You see the plastic housing, and this is a two-prong cord, and it's a very flat cord. And so this plastic housing is not constructed to withstand the amount of heat that a heat bulb is going to create. This one is an actual heat lamp. The housing is ceramic. If you look here, it has this ceramic ring. It also has a guard, so that once you put the heat bulb inside, you put the guard on there, and if it falls, that bulb is not going to make contact with anything unless it's maybe a bedding that fluffs up around the bulb. Also, you want to be sure there's a way to hang it. This painter's lamp has a clip. This is not sturdy. This, if you put a chain through right here and you hang it from maybe a hook and eye up in the ceiling, this is going to be sturdy. The cord is a whole lot stronger. Never ever hang a heat lamp by the cord, as easy as it may seem, because it's destined to fail. Maybe it'll come unplugged, maybe it'll slip. I've had this happen with some of my animals before, and luckily we were right there, and we learned the hard way, but nobody was hurt. It could slip. You want a red heat bulb. They do sell them in white as well, but you need to leave this on 24 hours a day. And if it's too bright, the chicks may not be able to sleep well. If you have a red heat bulb, not only can they sleep better, but also it reduces pecking at each other if you have the red heat bulb. You can get a reptile bulb, but any feed store would have this red heat bulb. And when it's time to set it up, you just remove the guard. You're going to screw it into there, put the guard back, and again, hang it by this loop. Now, there are so many safer options out there, and one is a brooder plate, and we have that right now in the pen. And if you look at the video, the baby chicks are moving under the brooder plate to warm up, just like they would under the mother hen. And then they're coming back out when they're hungry to eat or drink, and then going back. So the brooder plates, Brincy has one. This one was sold by Stromberg's. So they're great options. And as the chicks grow and as they need less heat, you just raise the brooder plate up and the legs will adjust to raise it up. Be very careful that the chicks don't perch on top of the brooder plate. If they start getting old enough that they're perching on top, you might want to put something on top to keep them from perching. Some brooder plates sell a dome that goes on top, where if the chicks jump on it, they'll slide right off. When it comes time to take the chicks outside, the chicks cannot live full-time outside until they are fully feathered. That includes their necks. If they have fluff on their necks, they're not yet ready to go outside. So you take that 6 weeks, and that's about 70 degrees. Now, if your outside temperatures are 70 degrees during the day, they can go outside to play because it's 70 degrees. But then bring them back in at night. It's actually a great way to bond with your chickens and tame them so that they're more likely to come up to you when they're older and be held and sit on your lap. If your house is 70 degrees during that week 6, you can turn the heat lamp off. If your house is 80, you can turn it off at week 4. Just pay attention to the ambient temperatures and how those chicks are acting. By week 6, they often get pretty stinky, and so you may want to take them outside during the day anyway, and it's fun to watch them peck the grass. Speaking of stinky, you always want great ventilation because the chick droppings are going to create ammonia. If you have broiler chicks, this is going to be 10 times worse. Egg chickens tend to have slower metabolisms, but you still need to change the bedding at least once a day. Anytime it's very soiled or if you have more chicks, you're going to need to change the bedding more often. The bedding that we have is actually, this was sent to us by a company called Maple River Farms, and this is called Miscanthus X Giganteus, and it's a very, very tall grass. It gets 12, 14 feet high. You can plant it as a hunting blind, but it's great for this biomass because you can cut it down every year, chop it into this completely non-toxic biomass. Maple River Farms sells the rhizomes for those. They're in Michigan, so it's something you can grow in any climate. When it comes to bedding, do not use cedar. As much as you're tempted because it smells great, cedar has oils that can really hurt their respiratory systems. Pine shavings are great. Pine pellets are great. Some people use the pellets for a pellet stove. As long as they're pine, they're great. Straw's another great one. Straw can get slippery, so pay attention to how well the baby stands on it. I really like this one because it's easy to stand on. It's going to compost very well. I can take all of this, put it in the compost, and then I can use it in the garden. It's a great product. So change that bedding often. Yes, we have a question.
Frida asks, could you talk about when to put chicks in the brooder?
Wonderful. That's great. So the chicks start hatching a Monday morning. Actually, one of them hatched Sunday night and it pipped. Because it had, we don't want to open that incubator if there are any cracks in the shell. Even if there are chicks running around inside the incubator, you don't want to open that incubator because the humidity could drop. They could trap those chicks that are still in the shell through that hole in the eggshell. But that's not a problem because the chicks are still absorbing their yolk sacs for up to 3 days. This is the same reason why you can receive chicks from a hatchery. They can be in the male for 3 days and they'll be just fine. Those chicks can stay in the incubator for 48 hours.
Do you have a video we can show if you want to talk through that?
Yes, wonderful. We're going to show a video of the chicks in the incubator. So these are the babies still in the incubator. As you can see, they're mostly dry. A couple of them are completely dry. They're running around. They're looking for food. This is the brooder right here. This is from Stromberg's, and it's a wonderful brooder. So we're putting the bedding in the brooder. We're putting the chicks in the brooder. This is us putting together the heat plate from Stromberg's, and this shows the legs that raise up and down. So at this point, we checked to make sure no eggs were pipping at the time. So with no eggs pipping, it was safe to temporarily open that incubator to take those chicks. We took a look, made sure they were healthy and happy, and then we dipped the beaks in water because they were bound to be thirsty. Even if they weren't hungry, they were going to be thirsty. We dipped the beaks in water to introduce them to that first drink, and then we put them in the brooder, and we put them near the heat source so they could first be introduced to that heat source. Then when they were warm enough, they could explore, and they could find food, and they could find water. But remember that 48 hours, if you have eggs pipping, it's okay to leave those other chicks in the brooder. If you think you need to open one and help it out of the egg, you most likely should not. Because as it's still hatching, it's absorbing that yolk sac, it's pulling that blood into its body. Opening the egg too soon could tear some of those blood vessels and could really, really hurt them. So unless you're 100% sure that that chick is in danger, resist the urge to help. So once they are in there, what do you feed them? That's a great question because there are different options. There's food you should and should not feed them. First of all, never feed them a layer ration. Roosters and any bird that is not laying should not have layer feed. The reason why, there is so much calcium in that feed that it will harm their kidneys. And this is damage you will not see until later on. You will maybe have a rooster that could have lived to be 10 years old, but dies at 3 years old because of kidney failure. Or you have baby chicks that are so sensitive. If you run out of chick food and all you have is layer feed, it's better just to give them cornmeal because they're so sensitive to too much calcium. If you need to feed everyone the same food, for instance, you have a mother hen and she also needs to eat, you can feed them an all flock ration, which is, it's okay for ducks, it's okay for guinea fowl, roosters, chicks. It doesn't have the extra calcium. Then you can offer oyster shell on the side for your hens that are laying. Now, the hens can have this extra calcium because they are injecting calcium daily from their bodies. Have you ever gotten an egg that's bumpy? That's the hen's natural way of injecting too much calcium from her body. She just puts it on the eggshell. Roosters and chicks cannot do that. Should you get medicated feed or non-medicated? That depends. Some people think medicated feed has antibiotics. That is completely untrue. It has amprolium. What this does is it restricts the niacin that's in their bodies because coccidia live naturally in their bodies. You don't want the coccidia to be so much it overtakes the chicken. Eventually, a chicken can become immune to the strains of coccidia on your property, but baby chicks are way too sensitive. They should not be introduced to coccidia until they were big enough that they can handle a little bit of diarrhea as they become immune to that coccidia. So Amprolium controls the niacin that these coccidia need to survive. I recommend doing a medicated food for at least 6 weeks until they start going outside. Do not feed a medicated feed to any waterfowl because they need niacin so much more than pigs do. If you have chicks and ducks in the same brooder, feed an all flock or an unmedicated chick ration. And then very carefully watch for any signs of coccidia, which is the bloody stool. But if you are providing all of the water, fresh water, if you're cleaning out the waters, we recommend at least twice a day just to completely clean and sanitize those waters. If the chicks do not have access to adult chickens or wild birds, then you probably won't have coccidia in your flock, and you definitely will not have worms. So some of those internal roundworms that chickens can have. So raising them inside is a great way to at least keep them away from those problems until they're older, more easy. It can handle that much easier. If you feed an alt flock, this is a chick feed. This is from Hen Pals, and this chick feed is very tiny. So if you're feeding an alt flock, make sure you get crumble, not pellets, because chicks have tiny beaks. The larger birds can adjust, and they will waste a bit, but the chicks can put this in their mouth. So this is one, it's wonderful. It's already formulated for a chick's needs. Can you mix your own feed? Yes, you can. There are great recipes out there, but when it comes to baby chicks, especially for that short time period, sometimes it's just easier to get a trusted formula and feed that to your babies. Then learn how to ferment feed later on when your hens are older so they can get the best start on life. These feeds have been tested, they've been formulated correctly, and they're amazing feeds. So when you have that water inside the pan, chicks will scratch naturally. That's what they do. That's one of their natural behaviors, and you want them to express it from the start. That means a lot of bedding gets in the water. Of course, if too much bedding gets in the water, they can't drink. So if you're going to sanitize your waters twice a day, even more often, you need to check those chicks and take out any of that wet bedding, set it far to the side. You don't want to set it right beside the water because the chick might lie on it, they might get chilled. Anytime your chick is chilled, make sure they're close to the heat source and watch them. So, and avoid chilled chicks if possible. This is a danger if you brood ducklings and chicks in the same brooder. The ducks will jump in the water and they will drench those chicks. So if I'm putting chicks and ducklings in the same brooder, I will take clean stones and I will put them in the water so that they can dip their beaks in between the stones. Also, because chicks can fall in the water, this is another way to make sure those chicks don't accidentally drown. Just take those clean stones, maybe those glass craft stones they sell at the craft stores, and put those in the water. If it's shiny, the chickens will also peck at it and be more likely to get water when they're still learning how to drink. And the humidity should be about 30 to 50%. This isn't something you need to worry too much if you're brooding chicks in your home because your home is likely 30 to 50% or higher humidity. If you're living in a desert, you might want to put a humidifier next to the chicks. Keep an eye on your ambient temperatures, your ambient humidity, so that they have that humidity. And remember that any wet bedding should be changed immediately because it can chill the chick, it can cause ammonia to build up. But if you compost, if you have a garden, all of that is great material that you can put in your compost for your garden. Now, mortality is to be expected. Just because you have these chicks doesn't mean the chick is going to get a good start on life to begin with. Unfortunately, that's the reality of nature. The chick might have hatched with a defect that allowed it to hatch, but it wasn't going to live very long. 1 to 2% mortality is to be expected. But if you start getting a lot of mortality, then it's time to reach out to a chicken expert or somebody who's had chicks several times to troubleshoot what might be going wrong, whether it's genetics, whether it's somebody's messing with your chicks, whether it's too cold. And as far as messing with the chicks, handling the chicks, kids want to hold the chicks. After a couple of days, it's okay to supervise them while they hold the chicks. But when I show you these chicks, I will show you where the navel is. And it looks like a little scab. You want to keep from messing with that navel because you could cause it to bleed as it's still healing. Definitely supervise them. Don't allow children to squeeze a chick. Don't allow them to drop the chick from a distance. A drop of even 18 inches can kill a chick if a child accidentally drops that chick on a hard floor. Okay, would you like to meet the chicks? Does anybody have any questions? None yet. Okay, look at this beautiful baby. This is your standard Easter chicken. So this little one is crying because he's no longer under the heat lamp. And I say he because the way he's standing, I am guessing that this is a rooster. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but sometimes right off the bat, you can look at the stand and you can see how they are standing. I'm only going to hold him a little bit up. I don't want him to fall. If he's standing higher, if he seems to be challenging you, he's probably a rooster. He could be a dominant hen, but that's a good way to keep an eye on them. And no, he doesn't have any feathers on his legs. Because we received these eggs with stamps on the shell to know what breeds they were, I'm going to say this one is a white rock. So similar to a barred rock, only white. And this one is a very happy little guy who is chirping loudly. You can see his clean legs right there. Now, I talked about stamps in sexing chickens. And a lot of people ask, how can you tell the sex of baby chicks? Because many people cannot have these roosters with that first crow, their neighbors complain, and they want to avoid that if at all possible. Let's talk about feather sexing. First of all, feather sexing only works if the mother is a slow feathering breed and the father is a fast feathering breed. I could have that turn around, but one has to be a slow feathering, one has to be a fast feathering. And there are specific breeds that are indefinitely slow or fast feathering. It could be, they could have those genetics in the same breed. So unless you know your breeder, unless you know they put those specific genetics into the flock, feather sexing is not going to work. So a lot of people will look at the wings, try to feather sex. For a hatchery chick, or hatchery egg, unless they promise those genetics, it most likely is not going to work. The hatcheries will vent sex, and that is where they get a microscope or a little magnifying glass. They look at the vent, and there are very, very fine details. They pretty much turn that vent a little bit inside out. And I don't know how the vent sex, so I can't tell you. But they will look at these differences, and they will determine if it's a male or female. But it's such an art that even hatcheries will say, okay, we can only give you a 90% guarantee because all of these seasoned vent sexers are often wrong. While we're looking at the back end, so here's a vent, and if I put my finger down here, I feel a rough patch. That is the navel. So you can see right there, that's the navel. That's what's still healing, and that is definitely what you want to avoid picking at. Now, if your chicks develop a pasty butt, that's where their poo pretty much sticks to the feathers, clusters around the butt. You want to get that off. And the best way is take a warm cloth, hold it there until you can gently pick it off. Don't pry it off. You could cause bleeding. If you leave it on, they can't poop, which means they will eventually die. So several times a day, and this is a great excuse to hold your baby chicks. Pick them up, check the butts for pasty butts, and remove it if necessary. This one, I'm guessing is a girl because of the way she's standing. This one, we received several on the list. This one could be a lavender Orpington or it could be an olive egger. And it is tough to tell. I'm guessing this one is a lavender Orpington, excuse me, because there aren't any of those other indicators such as I don't see fluffy cheeks there. I don't see a crest. I don't see any of the feathers might indicate that a Moran's was part of the parentage. So we'll know later on when it develops true feathers, but that's a guess there. So here is another one. We only have one lavender Orpington in the mix. This one I know is not a lavender Orpington, one, because I saw the egg that it hatched from. Number two, if you look at those legs, you see those feathers on the legs. Since the egg was a blue egg, and since Americanas don't have feathered legs, I know that the father here was a blue Marans, and Marans have feather wings. So this one is an olive egger, where it has that nice dark shell from the father. It has a blue egg from the mother. And so this is an F1 that, if it is indeed female, will lay olive eggs. So let's see if we can tell the gender just from how it stands. It's hard to tell just from the stance. I'm guessing male, but this one's about 50-50. But this is one that I would definitely want to keep an eye on because these eggs will be more valuable. All right, we're waiting for the next baby. So auto-sexing chicks and color-sexing chicks are very, very handy to have. And most heritage breeds are not auto-sexing except for creamy leg bars. Now, these were bred about the turn of the 1900s by the same guy who developed those Punnett squares, and he studied eggshell color, he studied feather plumage. This is not one of those. This is a Rhode Island Red. And I am guessing that this one is a female. This one does have a bit more of the chipmunk coloring, but that's not indicative in a Rhode Island Red. This one has a stance that indicates female.
How can you tell that?
Whether it's a female?
Yeah, like based on the stand.
So based on the stance, let me move this because this paper is slippery. If the paper is slippery, that's why you don't want to use newspaper in breeder. The chick can slide and can injure her legs and develop spraddle legs. You want something they can get a good footing on. So this tablecloth is better. So do you see how this baby is standing? We're going to, of course, try to keep her from running. She's standing a little bit further down. As she gets close to lay, if you pet her, she will squat down. But of course, she's not doing that yet. She's not anywhere near ready. But if she's standing up with her breast forward like she's challenging you, that's usually a very good indicator of a male. And because she's more docile, again, this one isn't 100%, but I am very much guessing that this one is a female. Also, could you grab me the male, the one that I'm sure is a male? I'm going to compare both of them. They're both Rhode Island Reds. Yes. Okay. Let's put them. Whew, he's already feisty. All right, so let's
I couldn't catch him.
see if you can see the differences. I'm ready when I take my hands away. I'm going to hold them together. And you see the differences in those two babies. You see the stance. He is a lot bigger. He's bolder. He's taking charge. Yep, he's already pecking at her. And there is a difference in the plumage as well, just a little bit. So just comparing these two, I'm going to say this one who is about to run away is male. The one that's more content to stay is a female. So when you compare them like this, it's easier to tell from behavior, males versus females. Okay, which one? Oh, we have a salmon faveroles. This is wonderful. It may take a few tries to grab them, but I'm going to see if we can get the salmon faveroles. I can show you one of the cutest traits of the salmon faveroles. One of my favorite chickens. They're rare. They hatch from a very pale egg. This is the egg that the salmon faveroles hatch from. Very nice and pale. They call it a pink color. The hens are kind of a blah color. It's one of the yellow ones, and it's daintier, and it has a bit of a buff color on its back, so it's not a pure yellow. But if you look up a female versus a male salmon faveroles, and it has the S on the end, like Moran's does, they're a French breed, you can see the striking differences. Yes, they'll all have fur feathers on their feet, but the faveroles will have extra toes, and it has a slightly darker plumage. We also have light Brahmas in here, which we'll show you in a minute. There we go. All right, here's the baby. Okay. So there's a little bit of a buff coloring, which you can tell from the top is different. Salmon faveroles have puppy cheeks. So if you look at these cheeks, they have these really cute puppy cheeks. They're adorable. And they have feathered feet, but see if we can zero in on this. Can you see those feet? See if we can zoom in.
As far as we can be.
All right.
I could also hold it up here. Yeah.
So we're going to hold this up to the camera so you can see.
Yeah, actually, I got it.
Faverolles have extra toes. This is not a defect. This is part of the breed.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cute. So we'll hold it up in just a second. This baby is not happy about this. She says, I don't think these cameras are normal. Not natural. There we go. It's a little bit blurry.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, you're done.
Okay. All right. Can you grab a light Brahma, please, so I can talk about them?
Is it this guy?
Yeah, any of the white ones with feathered feet is not the Faverolles. We had 3 light Brahmas hatch. This one, these are hard to tell roosters from hens early. Also, they are some of the last to lay. So if you hatch a Brahma, you might be waiting 11 months for that first egg. I have had Brahmas that hatched in March and they didn't lay an egg until November. This is normal. They're also only going to lay maybe 3 to 4 eggs a week. This is normal. But they are going to be one of the most loving, cuddly chickens, great around children, just big fluff balls. So if you want your chickens as pets and not specifically for egg production, Brahmas are wonderful. And they're so fluffy, they're big, but they look bigger. So you see, this one is super, super fluffy. You can see those feathers there on the feet, super feathery feet. And he wants to run away. So there are light Brahmas and dark Brahmas. Light Brahmas have that Colombian color, which is white, and they have black around the neck. Dark Brahmas are a gray with black penciling. They're gorgeous. I love Brahmas. Okay. The last one I'd love to talk about is the black one.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a list here. We took what was stamped on the shells, these codes, and we saved the shells and checked off what was on the list. And now, after we've checked it off, it's up to us to look at the plumage and determine what it is. So black chicks, especially with that white bib, black oscillorps, when they're grown up, are completely black, but they have that white right here, and they have little white dimples as chicks. When they start growing their primary wing feathers, they will have some white on the wing feathers. That will eventually molt out to be completely black. If these were a barred rock, you would also have a black chick, but barred rocks have the barring gene, which is a sex-linked gene. And if the mother was a barred rock and the father was a barred rock, the males will have a huge white spot on the head and the females will have just a very muted, sooty white spot. If the mother was a barred rock and the father was anything else, only the males will have a white spot on their heads. This is how they make black sex links. The mother is a barred rock, the father is usually any black breed. Or it could be because the black and the barn are dominant. There's other breeds they could throw into there. And then they remove the ones with the white spot because the mother's genetics go to the sons. And so that white spot will go into only the sons if only the mother is a barred rock. When it comes to the red sex links, they use what is the silver gene. Silver is not white. A white rock is white. The silver gene would be a Delaware. And then they mix it with a rooster that has the gold gene. So a Rhode Island Red would be one with the gold gene. And when they hatch, the babies will have, the females will have that reddish color, and the males will have that whitish color. So remember, the females get the color from the father. The female is red from the red father. The male is white from the white mother. And that's how the sex linking works. But you have to have very specific genetics. If you have any of those breeds, then you can use the plumage sexing to tell exactly what's male and what's female. Honestly, if you're breeding your own chickens and you're just starting out and you want to sell those sexed babies, I recommend getting a Rhode Island Red Rooster and a bunch of Delaware hens. Then you'll know that you can check the babies, you can sex link them according to plumage, and they're both excellent chickens, very smart, high rate of lay, heritage chickens, just great chickens. Okay, if you would like more information about chickens, of course, we have great books out. We have the Mother Earth News Raised Backyard Chickens. It has a lot of great content. We have a sister publication, that's Backyard Poultry Magazine, dedicated exclusively to poultry. We have chicken experts on staff. And so you can send in your chicken questions. I've been raising chicks off and on since I was 5 years old. And many of the employees here at Mother Earth News also keep chickens. In fact, many of these baby chicks, when they're no longer in the office, are going to go to live with Mother Earth News employees. And later on, we may be posting some photos of chickens from previous hatches that are still living happily in coops owned by Mother Earth News employees. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please send in your questions. You can contact us at letters@motherearthnews.com. We're happy to answer your questions, and keep following us for more of this Baby Chick Month for more great content. Thank you.